Hi, I'm M. Strain Jr. I am testing out the Canon EF-S 24mm 2.8 STM pancake lens. This lens is great for an all-purpose lens. If you want to do portraits, you should probably go with a 50mm. But when I got this lens for Christmas from my stepdad, I was really excited, and the next day I just wanted to go out and take pictures. Unfortunately, as it is whenever I get a new accessory or something for my camera, it had to be cloudy outside. So I had to go on YouTube because I'm an amateur photographer. I don't know too much about it. And I found that when it's cloudy outside, the best thing to do is to take black and white photos. It's a great day for black and white photos, is what they said. So I said, that makes sense. Without the sun, your colors are real flat. There's no shadows. Everything looks all sort of blah. So I said, okay, well, I'll go do that. I went down to the lake and took a bunch of black and white photos. I also took some in color. Now, the great thing about taking pictures in RAW is you can take a pic or two. You can take a picture in black and white, and if you decide later that you want it in color, that color information is stored in the RAW photo, so you can easily just convert it to color. So I did that for some of the pictures because, I mean, let's face it, it was fall outside and there were lots of orange leaves all over the ground, and I just couldn't do those in black and white. So I messed around with different pictures to see which ones look best in monotone and which ones look best with color. And these are not my pictures. I found these on Bing. Bing, you're saying Bing? Why Bing? Why not Google? Bing is great for looking for pictures and videos, in my opinion. Something I found when I look for landscape photos online is that they tend to be really oversaturated in color. And so when I took my pictures and brought them home, I then had the challenge of how do I add enough color into this without making it look really phony? I didn't want to have, like in one of these pictures here, everything looks like a neon green. And you know that things don't really look like that. In fact, when I got my pictures home and I was looking at them, they looked really flat and boring. So I had to figure out a way to spice them up without making them look really fake. Now, that's the second job of a photographer these days. The first job is to actually take a good picture, framing it all right and all the things associated with that, but then you have to take it home and fix up each and every single one of your photos. And that can be a really big pain in the butt. If you don't know how to work these programs, if you don't have a good eye, and you mess the coloring up way too badly, you're gonna end up with some crappy pictures. Anyway, let's go ahead and get looking at them, and I'm gonna talk about each one as I show them. So here we go. All right, here's my first picture of Apex Lake. I keep calling it Lake Pine, but I guess that's just because that's the name of the road that it's on. But this is Apex Lake. As you can see, it's very lifeless. It was just a gray day and very little color. Doesn't look vibrant at all. So when I went into post, I did some color correction and to bring out some of the colors, try and make it look a little bit more vivid. And we ended up with this. That looks a little phony. That's that phoniness I was talking about earlier. You have this, the pine straw, I guess that is, the stuff on the bottom right. Just unnaturally bright. That's not how I saw it in my eyes. And it just doesn't, there just isn't enough light on it to justify it looking that bright. So what I did then was I changed it to black and white. I messed with the contrast some, in fact the settings, and what we got was this. Now to me that looks a lot better. And you can see too that I also, for both the colored picture and this one, I added a graduated filter at the top to make the top a little darker, so it wasn't just a solid white as it appeared to be. So here's the original, here's the colored, the more vibrant version, and then the black and white. So That's a good example of why black and white is good on a cloudy day. There's just, to me, it looks better. I mean, still, this is kind of a picture of nothing. It doesn't look that amazing, but it looks better than the original, I would have to say. Okay, this next image is obviously of a bench. I don't know, I have this thing when I'm going around the lake. They have several benches around. I don't know, I like photographing them. To me, I don't know, a picture like this, when I look at this, I think of loneliness, which I guess kind of captures how I felt at the lake by myself. So here you have the bench with that long road going back, the walking path there, and there's no one there. The bench is just sitting there by itself. No one's with it. So yeah, to me, that's kind of what this picture is. It's kind of a loneliness sort of thing. Not really much more to say about it. I mean, again, this is another one of those shots that I thought would look much better in black and white because the original just was lifeless. But, okay, let's move on. Okay, this is the first of several photos where I didn't want to crop it to fit the video. Reason being is because when I took this picture, I set the focus on the bottom of the picture, the part of the path that's closest to us. So if I chop off the bottom, there's really going to be no focal point in the picture. If I cut off the top, it ruins the framing that I set up when I took the picture. So this I'm going to keep like this. So that's probably why you're gonna see black bars on the left and right. I like this. It's a decent perspective picture. The way the fence kind of works in the picture, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not a professional or anything, but to my eye, I like this shot. It's a good picture. And it was around this point when I realized that some of these pictures would look better in color. I mean, we're talking about these are fall leaves. So in this next shot, we're going to get some color. Now this one, again, I couldn't crop it for the same reason as the last one. I had to do some touching up in the background so that the sky wouldn't be so bright. And what I was left with was this interesting look. I don't know, to me it looks almost fake, like this is on some stage or something, like The Wizard of Oz with the painted matte background and I don't know, to me there's just something a little fake about it. I mean, I boosted up the color some, yes, and maybe I put the clarity up too high. The clarity adds kind of a sharpening sort of effect. But I don't know, I think this picture is really cool. I just love the way that the orange pops and everything. Now, yeah, there's that dead branch thing on the left-hand side, and I was considering moving it, but I thought, well, I mean, this is nature. This is what it looks like, you know, so I couldn't see moving it. But yeah, this is one of those shots, I think it has a slightly mystical look, and the next picture is going to be along the same theme. Now this one I love. There's just something really interesting about the coloring going on here. Again, I ran into the problem of, well, if you try and boost up the color a little bit, it's going to look fake, but if you don't boost it up at all, the picture is just going to look just dull. So here, I did boost up the oranges some, and what happened was I don't know, it left almost a silvery effect on the highlights of the leaves. I'm not sure exactly, but it has a, I don't know. I don't know how to describe the effect, but I think that looks really cool. If you look at the foreground at the bottom, at the leaves down there, you know, those are the ones that are in focus the most, and then it goes back. And then once you get to the trees in the far background, again, it looks almost like a matte painting. Almost as if it's flat back there, and you know, I don't know, there's just something manufactured about. It's hard to describe it, but like I said, it looks almost like for a stage play with the fake tree on the right hand side and everything. To me, I don't know. It just I'm not sure exactly how I achieved that effect. Again, it might have been boosting up too much of the orange and then a little too much of clarity, the contrast too much. I'm not sure, but I don't know. Even though I said before that I didn't like phony looking pictures, there's something about these ones here that, that I really liked. I was walking along down the path and I came upon a branch that had these things growing on it. I suppose they're called, it's called lichens, or something. Depends on where you're from in the world. I guess that's what these are. I don't know. I'm not too well versed in nature. I stay inside most of the time. But I saw these and said, oh, well, I definitely got to take a picture of those. So I got in close and I took a good shot of that. And I like the coloring. I like the way, I don't know what that weird orange thing is, that orange blob sort of in the, I don't know, a little off center, upper right off center. Yeah, but whatever. I saw these things and I was like, oh, wow, that looks cool. So I went ahead and I took some pictures. But then I remembered that my camera was, I mean, the lens, 24 millimeter, the EF-S 24 millimeter, 2.8, allows for you to get very up close to your subject while still maintaining focus. It's great for macro-like shots. So I ended up with this picture here. That is as close as I was able to get to them while maintaining focus. If I got any closer, it would start to blur. This was, by the way, handheld. I didn't use a tripod. I didn't feel like carrying a tripod around with me around the lake. But I like this here, the coloring. I tried to mess with the colors some, but I mean, this is pretty much as I saw it. The thing about messing with stuff in Photoshop and Lightroom is when you try and click on the auto settings, it sometimes colors everything weirdly. It tends to blow out my pictures and just boosts up the exposure too high or whatever. So I had to manually work on certain things, the exposure to contrast and all that. I gotta do that for just about every one of my pictures. Auto settings just don't work. But anyway, this is what I got, and I don't know, I like this. I'm real happy with this. I like that I was able to get this close. You can see the lens distortment around the picture, along the edges and stuff, how it gets that blur, and I don't know, it looks kind of like the picture is bulging out at you. And I tried a lens correction, but it's still, as of right now, there's no specs for that to use in Photoshop because it's a brand new lens. So Photoshop doesn't recognize the lens I have. So what it does is it uses the profile, that's what I was thinking of, the profile for the regular 24 millimeter, the EF 24 millimeter, not the EF-S, which is for the crop sensor cameras, which is what I have, the Canon T3i. All right, let's go on to the next one. This is another of those cool shots. How my subject, you can see how the 2.8 aperture really separates the subject from the background. What a larger aperture means, well, when you talk about f-stops, it's basically the smaller the f-stop, the larger the aperture, the iris that opens and closes when you take the picture. The more light that comes in, the more you get this separation. It's a narrow depth of field, which means that less of your image is in focus. And it creates an effect like this. As you can see, the leaves in the foreground are sharp, they're in focus, but the background has this really flat look. And it looks almost as if I was holding this, like this was being suspended in front of a green screen, and I added the background as like it was a separate picture. It doesn't look like they're the same, but it actually is. This was outside. There's nothing manufactured about this photo, and in that, this is just how it looked when I took it, the way the background's blurred like that. So that's really cool, and I believe this would be a great. Well, I wouldn't say it's really good for a portrait lens. Like I said before, a 50 millimeter would work, But you know, if you were standing at a decent distance taking pictures of several people, you had several people in the shot, I think it could work. And I don't know, I think this is just really cool. You could see how on the right-hand side, behind the tree there's a bench, a table. I mean, and I think there's a trash can over there, but I mean, you don't even see any of that. Your focus is right there on those leaves, and that's the point of that separation, is it keeps you focused on your subject. And this lens, this pancake lens, does a very good job of that. Squirrel! Yes, I saw a squirrel. And there's lots of them around there, and squirrels, I don't know, for some of us, you probably get tired of seeing them running around. But I really love squirrels in the fall at the lake because they tend to hide in the leaves, and they're down there scurrying around, and then they'll pop up and run through them. I don't know, they look really cute during the fall for some reason. And here I took this shot rather quickly because there were women walking down toward me along the path, and they saw me with the camera and they stopped, and I took the picture, and I was able to crop it in post to get it exactly the way I wanted it. I still got the basic setup, but I had to crop it out and everything, and to zoom in a little closer on him because he looked really small in the picture. The thing about using a wide-angle lens like the 24mm is you can't really take pictures of wildlife because they'll look really small in the picture. I had an issue before this point. I saw a waterfowl, I don't know what kind it was, like a herring or something, and I took several shots of it, and when I went into post, it looked so small in the picture, and no matter how much I zoomed up, I mean, you could barely tell what it was. And this is not a lens for wildlife, because you know, you can't get close to an animal without it running away. You would need a better zoom. Again, the 50mm would be better, but if you're doing wildlife, you probably want to do something that goes to 200 or 300mm. Because then you can really stand far away and get those tight shots in on them. But this is pretty much about as close as I'm able to get here. This is the photo at 100% zoom. So I'm not able to get any closer on that squirrel without losing quality. But yeah, I saw the squirrel, I wanted to get the picture. And still I have that kind of leading line from the bottom left, the fence, going up to the right side of the picture. So I still got some kind of framing, even though it was a quick shot. You know, it's not all that impressive. It's nothing that would win me an award, but it's, it's a picture of a squirrel sitting on a fence. Behold, another bench. Aren't these like the most amazing things in the world? Yes, here's my second one. Again, this one I have framed more along the top instead of having it more toward the bottom like I did with the first one. This picture is meant to be a little disorienting. When I took several shots of this, and in this particular image I decided to tilt the camera a little, and it created maybe a slightly disorienting effect. It bumped it up a little notch so it didn't look quite as boring as the other ones where the road looked flat on the image. And yeah, here everything looks slightly tilted, a little off, and I think that helped to add a little quality to the image. But you know, there's really nothing special here. It's a bench, you know, the leaves and stuff. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I like benches. Leave me alone. No, don't leave me alone. I still have more pictures to show you. This one here, again, I tried a kind of like a perspective shot. The thing is the trail goes up and then it dips down, so you don't really have it leading off into the background or anything too far. But I got this fence shot here. I took this from a couple different angles, and this is the one I like the best. You could see how these look decent in black and white, though. I mean, let me tell you, the original color shots were not all that grand. But with these here, boosting up the contrast and, you know, really playing with the light and shadow, you can get it looking a lot better. I question, though, how much you're supposed to have with the shadows, because you want your pictures to look kind of contrasty, but I don't want to lose much detail in them. And so that's one of those struggles, too, is trying to determine, like, take the trees along the top right, for example. How much of that detail am I willing to lose? There you can pretty much see everything. Now, if I wanted to really give the image a bang, I would bring down the shadows and darken that whole area, that whole, but I don't know. See, again, I'm a beginner here, and I still have to fiddle with this stuff and see what works best. And that's why I post some things up online too here on YouTube, so that people can look at it and give advice. I'm in the learning stages. So if you have any advice, I would really appreciate it. But again, another somewhat average picture. Isn't much you can do on a cloudy day, but I don't know. I'm kind of happy with this one. I assure you that there were people at the lake. But I think the theme in my pictures normally is loneliness. So for some of these shots, I had to wait for people to walk by, let them get out of frame. It wasn't too busy. I mean, this was kind of, this was during the day. This was, I think, well, it was before lunchtime. It was in the morning. There weren't too many people there, but I mean, there were people walking around. I think for this shot, I did have to wait for somebody to move out the way. But what we have is another shot of a road, a winding road. I figure if I take enough of these, maybe I'll take one that looks good enough. And what I like about this one too is that you actually see the road continue onward off the picture, where it winds in and then it makes that right-hand turn toward the center of the image, a little off-center to the right, and then it curves and goes left, and then you see it go off behind those trees. So I like it like that, where we have a little bit more length with the road in this image. But again, it's another picture of a path and some trees. Color again. Ah, yes, color. But not very much. Even messing with the vibrancy and the saturation, turning it, I put it up really high at first, just to see if I can get those trees in the background to pop out, and they just could not. And so what you have is a very boring background. I mean, look how, this is supposed to be fall, there are leaves on the ground, but because of the clouds, there's no sun making the light hit it and come back. That's the thing when you do photography, you're capturing light. And when there's not enough light, you don't have much of a picture. And so there's no sunlight to reflect off those leaves and then have that light from the leaves go into the camera. And so everything just looks so gray. So this is another image where I messed with it as best I could in color, and this was really the best I can get. And so I switched it to black and white. And here we see that image. It looks better. I wish I probably would have thought to darken those trees in the background, but that would take some work because there are some branches from this main thing here that are going out, and I don't want to darken those branches, just the trees in the background. But then the thing is, how much image manipulation do you want to use? Because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, the sky looks very overblown, it looks white, so I wanted to somehow make that look more grayer, to help with the contrast in the image, to help everything work. I don't know. I just, maybe I'm being very critical of myself. I'm being critical of my work. People tend to do that. Be critical of themselves, I mean, not just critical of me. But this is probably the best I can get with this shot here. I probably could have framed this better so that there wasn't so much sky in it and so much of that whiteness from the water. But it's a learning experience. Here we have a pair of images. I couldn't decide which one I liked better. I like this one. It looks good. I like the way it is. But then there's also this one. And I don't know. I think to me this one maybe looks a little more balanced. But they both have their good qualities. We'll switch back and forth some so you can see the difference there. There's the first one and the second one. First one, second one. I don't know. I tend to like the second one better because of what it does for that tree on the right, that green tree. Now for both of these, I had to use an adjustment brush, which allowed me to basically paint over the trees in the background where the sky is and drop down the highlights because there was just too much there was too much gray light coming in, and it was outshining my subject, my foreground basically. The background was outshining my foreground, so I had to darken it. I tried not to make it look too obvious. I don't know, maybe if you have a sharp eye you could see where I went with the brush, but that's the thing, you have to do these adjustments now. It's not just about framing your picture and worrying about your focus and the lighting and all this other stuff. Now it's what you have to do in post to correct these images, and you have a whole lot more control over it. And the whole thing is finding that balance so your images don't look really fake. You want your images to look beautiful. You want people to look at them and go, ooh, wow. And I don't think any of you would do that for any of my photos, but in the first one here, I noticed there's that web in the top right. So yeah, I don't know, maybe the second one here just looks better. I like the way the branch on the left, the top left kind of comes in there and helps to frame the picture some. And that's missing from the first shot. So yeah, maybe the second one's better. But I just couldn't get myself to get rid of the first picture. So I have them both, but I guess I like the second one better. Okay, here's like a little creek that sort of kind of runs into the lake. Again, I boosted the color up a little bit, but not too much. You know, the colors are very blah, but still, I like this photograph. Again, we have that sort of diagonal from the bottom left, the rocks moving up toward the, going up the right side of the image. I probably could have done that better, but I don't know. I kind of like this shot. I like how we have those rocks there in the top left. You know, they're just a little out of focus. I think I focused kind of on that gray rock in the center because I wanted to get as many of those rocks kind of in focus as I could. Something like this I think looks better in color. I tried it in black and white, but when you're doing water and there's, it just looks really icky in black and white. Yeah, so I decided to go with the color. What do you know? Other human beings exist in my world. Yes. I decided to actually catch a person in this picture. He was jogging, and so you see him kind of in, I don't know, that just looks funny. He looks almost like he's raising a piece of chicken to his mouth. But anyway, there's, I again tried to use a sort of perspective thing, not too well. It wasn't used too well here. This image here was mostly so I could show people how they restructured this section of the path. They raised it up. I guess there was a point where it got flooded over because on the right hand side of this path is like a little swampy area where you hear frogs and stuff all the time. Turtles hang out there, and I think that might have risen up and gone over the path. This was originally a dirt path, and they recently reworked this now and made it a sidewalk basically. To put the rocks there below the side, I guess, to help reinforce it. But that's really the main point of this image. I didn't take this with the idea of, well, I'm going to frame this and, ooh, amazing picture, ooh. I did do some minor color correction here. I used the highlight brush, I believe. I think I used a highlight brush on the, the electric things on the left-hand side on the top left. I brought the highlights down to help bring them more into the picture because the sky was sort of blowing them out. So you can actually see them now. So yeah, look, I got a person in there. Yay! Remember about that waterfowl I told you about earlier? Well, I found another one right there as I was walking along that sidewalk. And I said, ooh, well, I can't get a close picture, but I can kind of try. And I actually stepped in an area where the ground was about level with the water. And so it was, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if I take a wrong step, I'm probably gonna sink into this water, I'm gonna fall into it. So I got as close as I could, and you can see that the bird there was looking at me, keeping an eye on me. And I got decently close, and I got him in the shot, I got him framed okay. It's nothing amazing. If I had more of a zoom lens, if I had something that went up to 200 or 300 millimeters, we'd probably see a lot more detail on his body, the feathers and such. We'd be really close up to him. But as it is, the 24 millimeter, it's equivalent to, I think, what, a 38 millimeter on a crop sensor lens like I have, as far as the zoom factor goes. But, you know, this was as close as I was able to get to this bird. So if you're going for a lens to shoot wildlife, you probably want to get something with a much larger focal length. Still, I'm happy I got the bird. And that's kind of funny. Anyway, well, I'm happy I got the bird. It reminded me of New York. Here's another one of those tilty shots. I took several shots of this thing. And when I say several, I mean like more than 10 actually. Of this sign. I was trying to get the right angle to use here. And I went with the tilty. First I turned the camera on the side, of course, which is why the image is so narrow. And then I tilted the camera some. And we got this shot here. I kind of like it, you know, warning. It gives you this sense of danger, maybe, how everything's all a little out of whack. Again, I had to use the highlight brush or something. I did something to help bring those power lines, which is what I meant to say before, power lines. To bring the power lines into the shot because, again, the sky was overblowing them. You could barely see them. So, yeah, I don't know. I did a little bit to the color here. I brought up the color on the sign and whatever, but cloudy day, not much color. Still, I like how the sign stands out against everything else. It was just a really bright yellow, really bright red. And so I like that, just how it's kind of shocking to the rest of the environment. This sign here I've photographed several times before. And I think I'm most satisfied with this lens. I had used I think I tried my 50mm 1.4 on it. And I don't know, I didn't like the blur on the sign. Here I was able to get the whole sign in focus while still separating it from the background. So, I don't know. To me, I think this shot here is the best shot of this sign I've taken. And I've tried it from different angles and such with a couple different lenses. The kit lens, the 18-55, still couldn't quite get it. I mean, it looked good. It looked good, but I think this just came out looking better. I like the natural coloring that was in the shot, and then of course I went in and I fixed it up some. I again had to darken out the sky a little bit so it wasn't so bright in the image. But overall, yeah, I'm really happy with this shot. So I was walking along the trail and I saw this, and I don't know, there was just something symbolically amazing about this picture that I liked. Here we have this big tree, okay? I mean, it's not all that wide, I suppose, but still, it's a bigger, heavier tree that has fallen. And it's being supported by these smaller ones. You have these smaller trees supporting their fallen friend. And I don't know, maybe I'm just weird in the head, but it brought to mind images of like soldiers in battle and things like that, like their fallen comrade and they're holding him up now. So yeah, I just think it's cool, you know, the idea that this tree's fallen and it's dead or dying, and you know, its last bits of life were in the arms of its friends. So yeah, I don't know, I think that's cool. So I went on and I took this shot and I tried to get a decent angle that allowed me to get something like the length of the tree. I wanted to get the length in there. And the thing is, when I moved a little closer to it, when I tried to move a little bit more to the right, you kind of lost the length some because of the way the angle was. So to me, this was kind of the best angle to take the shot. I could be wrong, but that's just my eye. Anyway, yeah, so yeah, okay, yeah, that. Anyway, that's the, but yeah, that's what I did. Okay, let's go on and move on to the next image. Okay, in this one, again, we have another kind of like a vivid sign in contrast to everything else. I did use a filter effect in post in the sky to darken it some. For the most part, the coloring is sort of the same. I mean, I boosted up the vibrance a little bit. But what I like about this is it gives you a good demonstration, again, of that blur, but not too much. I think this shot here in particular, I might be wrong, f13. I took this at an f-stop of f13, which is why the sign is not completely isolated from the background. You don't see this huge blur like you did with those leaves earlier. Here you actually get more of the background in the shot. And to me, this has more of a natural look. I didn't want to completely blur out the buildings and stuff, but I still wanted to have that sense of depth in the picture. Your eyes, when your eyes focus on this sign here in real life, when you're standing out there and your eyes focus on the sign, the background blurs. If the background didn't blur, then in the image, the whole image would look flat, it would look very unnatural. Which that looks okay for some landscape shots, but for something like this, you definitely want to have that blur in there. I took two images, well, I have two completed images of this skateboard. Something just struck me about it. I guess it fits my theme of loneliness. Here you find it, it's broken. The wheels are, it's missing at least one of the wheels I see there. And it's sitting there. No one's playing with it. It's just discarded, leaning up against the fence. So I, again, tried to use the fence for some kind of perspective. I got the board along the, the line separating the left third of the image. And yeah, it's just sitting there all by itself, all alone. So I took pity on the board and decided to make it famous by taking a picture of it and sticking it up online. And here's the second image. We can get a little bit more detail on the board. Again, I turned my camera sideways to get this shot. And yeah, so there it is, leaning against the fence. You see the fence is kind of broken too. It looks like maybe a dog or something crawled into there. But yeah, there it is. Lonely, broken, weathered skateboard. I know how you feel. I know how you feel. Here's another one of those images where I debated about it because this butterfly on the trail here was in color, it was yellow. And I thought, I don't know, I looked at it and I thought, well, this would look better in black and white, even though it was yellow, because then if we had it in color, then we'd have the orange of the leaves and other things distracting from it. I think in black and white, it's much more, it stands out a lot more. There are symbols along the trail as you go down the path, different animals and such. And I think the purpose of that is for emergencies. You're able to tell them what part of the path you're on. I think it changes like every quarter mile or so. This is the butterfly part of the trail. Hark! What be that in the distance? Be that another bench? Yes, it's another bench. A whole nother bench. And it's also along the butterfly trail there, as you can see, the little butterfly on the path there. Yeah, just another bench, I guess. Just looking out over the water. No one sitting on it. There was no one around at this point. Yep, just looks like it wants to be sat on. Yep, I know that feeling too. Okay, I want to show you the two variants in this picture, and I want to show you why this looks better in black and white. You look at this, and I love the setup of it. To me, it's framed wonderfully. You see how the water, the top of the water there is along that line that separates the top third of the image. I like how we have this bush here in the bottom left. You can't really see it unless we zoom in. But there are some birds sitting out there in the water on that thing. I don't know what that thing is out there. Let's switch to color, and I want to show you. Boop. what it looks like. Yeah, it just, I don't know. Like, it's okay. For this, I actually did, let me see. For this, I actually added a graduated filter to the top and the bottom. Because when I added it to the top to darken the sky more toward the top of the image and have it gradually turn whiter toward the bottom, I realized I needed to do the same thing for the water because it would just look weird if the water was completely white. So I added the filter to the bottom as well, so you see how it's darker at the bottom and then it works up getting white as you move up toward the middle of the image. And so that created a better look, and it helped a little with the framing as well. But overall, just look at the colors, how the green, but I mean, it's practically black and white all by itself except for the green of the trees. So you go back to black and white and I don't know, it just, that looks better to me. I just think that's a better image. Maybe you think the colored one looks better. But no, see, I would go with the black and white there. I have a couple flower pictures to show you. This was actually not at the lake. This was, I mean, it was close to it. I was on my way up, walking up to Wendy's, decided to get myself the Son of Baconator for lunch. I absolutely love Wendy's. So I was walking up there. No, they did not sponsor this video. I was walking up there and I saw these flowers and just the brightness of them and how they stood out from the rest of the environment. I mean, I added a little bit of vibrance to this image, but nevertheless, they still, I mean, you could see how they stand out from the leaves around them. I went, ooh, pretty. So I got down and I took some pictures. If there was something I could change about this image, it would be that dead flower on the left-hand side. It's like withering away there. And so to me, that kind of ruins the beauty of the image. I probably should have taken a picture of a different yellow flower. But I wasn't really thinking about that. I was really checking to see how close I can get to this flower when I took the picture. So, you know, overall the picture's good. Again, I wish the dead flower wasn't in it. I would have probably plucked it out if I was determined to take that particular flower's image. But yeah, that's what it is. And here's this violet one. This I really like. I really like this one. The thing about it is I think there's too much blur in it. If I'm not mistaken, I used a 2.8 aperture on it. Let me see. No, it was 5.6. But even still, it looks like, to me, there's too much blur. There's a little bit of the flower that's out of focus. Even though the part I was focusing on is sharp, which is, you know, the yellow part. And you see the veins sort of coming out. I think that's really cool. So yeah, so even though the top is a little blurred, because it was a little more forward out of my focus range, it's still a good image. I like it. Again, because the main emphasis again is on the yellow and on those veins. Could I have framed this better? Yeah, I could have, but this is what it is. Lastly, I'm going to leave you with 3 variants of me. It's 3 different color variations. Here we have the black and white, which I think just looks the best, with a bench behind me. Yes, there is a bench behind me, but I assure you I was taking a picture of myself here. But I guess this is a good way to close it off because I was telling you about the benches and the loneliness and stuff, so now you have me and the bench together in the shot for the last images of this video. You could see how the wide angle lens kind of affects my face. My nose looks like it's sticking out a little further maybe. My face looks a little thinner. That's the thing. When you use a wide angle lens like this, a wider angle I should say, this isn't really good portrait lens. It tends to distort you a little bit by pulling your features a little toward the lens because it's trying to capture more into the image. So that means it has to kind of compress everything. But still this is a decent image of me. So here it is in black and white, and here it is in color. This is probably more of a natural coloring. I couldn't boost up the vibrancy too much because it would have messed up my skin. And I didn't want to get into this whole thing using adjustment brushes and whatever else. I don't think I used anything for the sky back there, so that's pretty much just a natural thing. I boosted up the vibrancy a little bit, and I played with the contrast and such, but that's really about it. Nothing too fancy here. And the third variant was actually done in Photoshop, and there's the raw image processing part, and then when you choose to open the image, it's just in Photoshop like a regular image. And here it was like auto color, just to see what it would look like. And auto color, when I'm taking my fall pictures, tends to make everything look bluish. So you can see the difference in color there. Everything has a much cooler look to it compared to the warmer colors of the first colored image. But that's really it. But going between these, I prefer the first colored image, and between the three of them, I would go with the black and white. I just think the black and white looks awesome. As it is right now, at the time I'm posting this video, I have the first colored picture here as my new avatar image on YouTube and Google, although I don't use Google+. But that's it. That's the end of my video. I hope that this was a good demonstration of the 24mm, the EF-S 24mm 2.8 lens. You got to see a good look at it, and you could decide if you want it. Like I said before, it's very good for those really tight shots of objects, although you have to expect that when you get close to them, there is going to be some distortion. If you want to do if you want to take pictures of people, it's great for maybe multiple subjects where you can't get like really close up on them. If you're doing a shot with one or two people, a 50mm will work. But yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I rambled on a lot, and this was actually much longer than I intended it to be. I was originally going to upload these photos just as a slideshow, but I thought I would talk about each image some, give you some insight, my thoughts about them as I was taking the pictures and going through the post-processing and everything like that. And if I said anything wrong and you know better than me, please correct me. I would, as I said before, I like learning. I'm trying to get better at this, kind of as a hobby. I don't plan on really making money off of this. But if you have any advice on something you see me doing wrong, like in my post with my coloring and all that other stuff, please let me know. And I guess that's it. I'm posting this kind of, I'm posting this kind of first week December, towards second week of December. So wish you all a Merry Christmas. That's going to be very outdated after Christmas, when it's nowhere near Christmas and somebody's watching this. But hey, whatever. Merry Christmas, whatever time of year it is.